There's an excessive bombardment of information that leaves us passive, without time to think, analyze, or grasp what is happening. We become paralyzed by the sheer quantity of information, making it impossible to process. This is a central concept in Baudrillard's work. This information overload is metaphorically depicted in the beginning of the film The Matrix. We see Neo, half awake and daydreaming, surrounded by screens, projecting an endless stream of text and light onto his face. Through Neo, we understand that information is everywhere on the internet, in screens of all kinds. However, we feel overwhelmed and don't know how to make sense of it. We become passive, unable to manage this influx of information. You may already be aware that every second spent on screens leads to the collection of information about your consumption habits. Algorithms constantly analyze you, subjecting you to advertisement and propaganda. This also applies to your work life. You are part of a company that manages you as part of a larger whole. Instead of being seen as an individual, you are reduced to data, managed solely to maximize the company's profit. You are part of the system. You are within the matrix. In fact, you are the matrix.
This company is one of the top software companies in the world because every single employee understands that they are part of a whole. Thus, if an employee has a problem, the company has a problem.
In essence, our bodies have become information terminals, constantly bombarded with data to extract maximum resources. One of the most remarkable parallels between the film The Matrix and Baudrillard's philosophy is the concept of code. In the film, we see streams of green numbers scrolling down, representing the code. Baudrillard argues that postmodern society is a coded society, where signs and symbols have become more important than the object they represent, particularly in consumer culture. Let me give you a practical example that can help you understand this seemingly complex idea. Take Starbucks. For instance, when we drink Starbucks, we expect to be consuming coffee. The brand is called Starbucks Coffee. However, over time we have noticed that coffee has become less significant at Starbucks. Nowadays, when we drink Starbucks, are we really drinking coffee or are we consuming the brand itself? Has the original product, which aimed to promote the brand, been replaced? If we look at a large Starbucks coffee, we find that only 1/5 of it contains coffee, while the remaining 4/5 consist of milk, whipped cream, vanilla, caramel, or chocolate. Very few people actually drink coffee when they go to Starbucks, even though it was originally meant to be a coffee brand. This is a concrete example of what Baudrillard suggests. The sign, the code, the Starbucks brand has completely taken the place of the underlying product, which was coffee. The marketing power behind it is so strong that they managed to charge $6 for a coffee. Often, 4/5 of what you get is milk, whipped cream, and sugar. Yet, there are other places where you can get coffee for much less, but people don't mind because they don't want to consume coffee. They want to consume Starbucks. Starbucks must be making substantial profit because they sell something for $6 when the actual raw materials cost next to nothing. The coffee, which should be the expensive part, has become insignificant. The milk, whipped cream, and flavor syrup cost next to nothing. So the cost of a Starbucks cup must be minimal once you consider the expensive raw materials like coffee. Nevertheless, everyone believes they are drinking coffee when they go to Starbucks. In a postmodern society, people no longer care about what they are actually consuming. They no longer drink coffee. They drink the sign, the brand, the code, the illusion. To become an object of consumption, says Jean Baudrillard, the object must become a sign that is external in some way to a relationship that makes it different through the sign. It is consumed not in its materiality, but in its difference. Relation is no longer live, it is abstract, abolished in a sign object where it is consumed. The different logic of the sign value constitutes the advanced stage of the commodity, where the commodity imposes itself as a code, as a geometric locus for the circulation of model, and thus as a total medium of the culture. Baudrillard tells us that in consumer society, for an object to become a consumable object, it must transform into a sign. Coffee becomes Starbucks, so we no longer consume coffee itself, but rather its illusion, its simulation. We can apply this idea to other examples, like Apple. Apple was officially founded on the 1st of April 1976, with its initial product being the Apple I. Apple I was a computer kit that allowed users to build their own computers. However, once again, this is insignificant. Who actually knows about it? Not many. Only a few tech enthusiasts are aware of Apple history, but that's about it. The majority of people remain unaware. Today, people are not primarily interested in the raw products. They are captivated by the brands. The Apple brand has taken precedence over the products themselves. People don't buy a phone, they buy iPhone. They don't purchase a computer, they buy MacBook Pro. People buy the product from Apple because it is Apple. Apple has also launched their new Apple Vision Pro product, which in my opinion is a new level that will lock people even further into the world disconnected from reality. Everyone who uses this product will not see reality, they will see a representation of reality. One of the main ideas that Baudrillard tries to explain is that consumer society relies on code to erase the original essence of consumption and replace it with the consumption of brands and signs. To illustrate this concept, let's consider an excerpt from an interview with Jean Baudrillard in 2003, published in the journal Philosophoire. In this excerpt, he discusses the shift from object to sign and the gradual dominance of sign that overshadowed the original object or materials. Baudrillard explains, initially there are object and sign. At first, objects are represented by sign, but at a certain point, signs become predominant and start to eliminate the reference to the object. This marks the phase of simulation, where the referents start to disappear. It's important to note that these changes don't happen overnight, they occur gradually over time, with a status quo lasting for years until the simulation completely replaces reality. Initially, the sign represents the real object, such as the Starbucks sign representing coffee. However, over time, there's a transition where the sign gains dominance and gradually erases the original product. Starbucks, for example, shifts the focus away from coffee until it is replaced by the brand itself. People no longer consume coffee, they consume the sign. Next time you see someone holding a cup of coffee, question what they are actually drinking. Are they genuinely enjoying a cup of coffee? Or are they already immersed in the simulation, consuming a symbolic representation of coffee within the matrix? It's important to note that when the cup contains a minimal amount of coffee mixed with milk, sugar, vanilla, caramel, or chocolate, it can no longer be called coffee. We can use different names like latte, cappuccino, frappuccino, or iced coffee, but this variation and simulation have replaced the original substance of coffee in our daily lives. By understanding these dynamics, we can recognize how consumer society values the sign and brand over the genuine product, leading to a shift in our perception and consumption patterns. Let's go back to the movie The Matrix. There's a scene where Baudrillard's book, Simulacra and Simulation, makes an appearance. Neo encounters customers looking to buy pirated CDs, and he opens the book, revealing its hollowness. He cleverly uses it as a hiding spot for his money and a few pirated CDs. This scene symbolically represents a central idea in Baudrillard's work. the notion that beneath the surface, everything is empty and lacks substance. In a postmodern society, nothing holds true meaning. Consider this. Never before in human history have we produced such an abundance of books. Bookshelves are filled with numerous authors and beautiful adorned covers. However, the books of today lack depth. They have lost their meaning. What do we find at the forefront? Books by Michelle Obama or reality TV stars, biographies of politicians whose careers are as hollow as the book themselves. Baudrillard highlights the peculiarity of modernity, where the search for meaning behind appearance was sought, like Freud's exploration of the subconscious or Marx's understanding of the profound value of labor. However, in a postmodern society, the pursuit of meaning has faded away. Things no longer need to make sense or have a connection to their origins, roots, or historical context. In a postmodern society, this aspect holds no significance. In a way, the postmodern individual no longer relies on the reference point to define their existence. They no longer seek validation through history, roots, or cultural ties. The postmodern person finds their identity in self-expression, particularly through symbols. The most accurate portrait of a postmodern individual is the digital nomad sitting in a Starbucks, proudly showcasing their MacBook adorned with the iconic Apple logo. It's the brand, the symbol, the code, once again. And of course, they are their cup of sugary latte filled with sweetness. When we observe this individual at work, we don't identify them by their personal history, origin, or cultural background. Instead, we identify them by the computer they own, the MacBook displaying the iconic beaten Apple logo. We could also extend this analysis to their clothing, the specific brands they wear, the sneakers or shoes adorning their feet. All of these elements shape the essence of the postmodern person, no longer representing a singular origin, but rather an accumulation of symbols, an assemblage of brands.
I felt sorry for guys packed into gyms, trying to look like how Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger said they should.
That what a man looks like?
The postmodern individual has transformed into a screen projecting brands, no longer needing to make logical sense, have a personal narrative, or have profound statement to make. The reliance on the reference point has faded away. The traditional anchors of family, cultural heritage, ethnic background, and religious affiliation somewhere along the line, all of this diminish. What truly matters now are the signs that surround us, the multitude of brands that encompass our existence.